Hey everyone, welcome to GTM Secrets, everything go to market, sales, marketing, RevOps, you name it. We've covered a lot of different topics, but I'm excited today to have Sam Johnsen on the line here. He is an account executive in the tech space. And while we've had a lot of executives, CIA, literally you name it, we've probably had that type of person on. I think it's really good to learn from actual account executives that are in the weeds, doing outreach, closing, long deal cycles, et cetera. And Sam's essentially the epitome of that. Sam, do you mind giving a little bit of background on yourself?
Yeah, first off, thank you for having me on the call today. Excited to be here. I've been in tech sales since 2019, started as a BDR at a small startup with some very successful sales leaders, was able to be mentored by incredible leadership all around me. And then I'm over here at Recharge Payments now. We're a e-commerce subscription management platform. And I've learned a few incredible things over the year that have helped me really set myself apart from different sales reps in the way I perform, the way I develop myself and my peers around me. And I'm excited to share a few things that have worked for me.
Well, let's start by just giving us the highlights. What do you think at a high level you do differently than most AEs? And let me start that off with most account executives are broke and not doing very well. And I think it's like 60 or 70% are missing quotas. So what makes you different?
There's a few things that I think make me different. First off, I haven't missed a quarter in the last 6 quarters. So I'm on a 6 going on 7 streak right now. What I do to really differentiate myself is I'm very intentional with my development. I think that's an overlooked part of sales. Every week when I start my week, I write down my goals. I write down how I want to spend my time. And then at the end of the week, I make sure that I've stayed true to that. Something that sets me apart is I'm intentional with how I spend every hour on my calendar, whether it's prospecting, digging into big accounts, or focusing time to develop skills. I make sure that I'm intentional with that time so that each week I see at least some type of small improvement, and that really starts to compound over years.
How much of it is development that you're intentionally doing on your own versus maybe your leadership is also pouring into you?
Yeah, the relationship that I've set up with my leadership is I like to bring him things to help me with. What I found in my sales career is that the average manager doesn't have time to be proactive with things that are small or areas of improvement. They really only have the ability to tell you the big red flags. But if you're looking to see that consistent small development over time, you have to be proactive with it. So what I do is I review a lot of my own calls and I bring findings or areas of opportunity to my manager or to my mentor in advance and prep them and say, here's how I want to spend our one-on-one this week. I noticed that I'm struggling with big deal development or cracking into large accounts. And that way our time can be a lot more thoughtful. And it's not just kicking tires and asking how we're doing and talking about family. I actually get to spend those 30 minutes to an hour each week getting better and getting insight from someone who has more experience than me.
Not to go off on a tangent here, but I think in general, people don't ask questions anymore, qualitative questions. And I think that goes to when you're external facing, talking with a prospect, are you asking qualitative, intelligent questions? Or are you just going through a BANT, qualification process, making sure they got money, authority, et cetera, right? But that goes internally too. Am I doing the best at closing that I possibly can? Well, my closing rate may have gone down. Why? And I don't think people ask why enough. Why does my outreach suck? Why am I not growing in my career? Why am I not making as much as I want? I don't think people are very introspective at all. So I got to say, that does sound like you're different than most AEs that I talk to, at least in that regard.
Yeah, thank you. One thing I like to do is be introspective, ask questions, but I like to motivate myself by putting a dollar number on it. If I can get my close rate up 5%, what does that mean for me? That means an extra 50 to 60 grand for me and my family each year. And really figuring out what the lowest hanging and easiest fruits are to develop and what the dollar sign associated is with each of those talents, where to spend my time.
Yeah, I think too many sales reps are either too hard charging and just want to go in for the kill, or they're too laid back and more order takers. If a deal lands in their lap, there they go. And it's when you ask more of the qualitative questions of yourself and your prospect that you actually build a relationship that you start to see a difference, what's working, what's not. The little anecdote that I usually give is when I first started in sales, there were two gentlemen that were killing it, doing, 7 figures or more, multiple 7 figures in revenue, doing HR consulting, which is where I got started. One was super formal and professional. The other was much more dry and sarcastic. When I tried emulating both of them or, one of them at a time, I made zero money, like literally the lowest paid person in the company. And when I started to ask myself, well, why isn't it working? Why am I not coming off genuine? Why are my calls failing in comparison when I'm copying them? That's when I realized, oh crap, I can actually sell more naturally. I can be me. I can develop a relationship authentically, but it's asking those why questions. So I fully agree with you, Sam. Going back to what I mentioned though, quotas are not being hit systematically in sales, particularly in tech sales. I got to pull up the exact stat, but I swear it's like high 50s or 60s, maybe even 70%, right? And yet AEs get a nice cushy base, but they're not hitting quotas oftentimes. Why do you think that is? And what are some of the biggest challenges as an account executive that you're facing?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why I think people don't hit their number in today's current selling environment. Obviously, the average person would point out economic factors and things like that, but I'd say that the good sellers always find a way to hit their number regardless of what's going on around them. What I've seen and what I've noticed across my career is that a lot of people just show up and they put in the hours and they're not willing to be introspective or find ways to succeed. And they're not willing to do whatever it takes to be successful. They're just collecting a paycheck and rinsing and repeating. And they don't really develop over years of their career. And they're kind of just wasting their time and collecting a bit cushy base salary, like you said.
I would definitely agree. I think too, like we were talking before, and you do some of your own outbound, right? When AEs are tasked with just handling meetings and maybe some follow-ups, it's very, very easy to get complacent and end up spending their time on TikTok between meetings or taking extra long, bathroom breaks, whatever, right? I think that time management becomes very lackluster at best with a lot of AEs that I talk to. So I like that you schedule out your time. It's like nice basics, go time block, that sort of a deal. And yet it works. So I completely agree. Can you be more specific though with like you personally, where you're at right now? What are the biggest issues that you're facing? Is it prospecting isn't working the same way it used to? Is it, now that we're in Q4, people are punting to the new year? What are some of the more tactical things that you're facing now?
I'd say it's both of those issues that you mentioned. I've noticed that a lot is that, prospecting has completely changed. People are getting blown up all day, every day, 40 to 50 different emails a day. And how do you stand above the rest? How do you differentiate yourself with your outreach? What I've started doing is I've actually shifted over the past few years from a quantity approach to a quality approach. Each quarter, I identify 50 accounts that I want to crack into. And each week, I work on 5 accounts. And that's it. I stay hyper-focused. I call it the sniper approach. I find someone that I really want to get that I know is a great buyer, great personnel at a great company or could be. And I reach out to them 1 to 2 times a day with high quality outreach for 2 to 3 weeks in a row.
Wow.
I go the sniper approach, hyper focused. I don't blow up lots of people. I probably send 25 emails a day, make 25 calls, and that's it. I'm not looking at numbers. I'm looking at quality.
So I assume then you're taking an ABM approach, right? With that, I assume you're reaching out to multiple people at each organization, or is it literally just, I'm going in for this one and I'm going to be as persistent as I possibly need to be?
I'll do up to 5 for each organization, but I'll identify 5 orgs a week, and that's all I'll spend my time on for each week. And then I'll
How do
go
you
after them like crazy.
How do you identify the brands? Are you guys using any intent data? Or is it literally like, hey, I know they're using a competitor, I want to steal them? Like, how do you think about that?
It's mostly around competitive rips. We'll look at brands. I like to look at our competitors and see what brands they put on their website as like their favorite brands that they work with.
Yep.
And we've got some good incentives where we work to rip those people. So we focus big on competitive rips. And then also we obviously look at intent data. If people are showing buyer intent, that obviously highlights where to spend our time better. But if we can't get that, we'll just focus on the big competitive rips and go whale hunt for some big deals.
What's the intent platform that you guys use?
Right now we use Apollo and a different one called Store Leads, which is specific to e-commerce.
Yep, I gotcha. Yeah, Apollo's good. They their intent data, I'm pretty sure, comes from Bombora, which is good. It probably works better for somebody like yourself. One of the issues with intent data is if you have a 30, 60, maybe even 90-day sales cycle, that intent data is a lagging indicator, right? So by the time intent signals pick up that company looking for ABC solution, they already have a vendor by the time that you reach out. You're dealing more in the mid-market and enterprise space. So I do see how there could be some more efficacy with that than, like Identity Matrix. We're not a 6-month sales cycle. We're, less than a month in most cases. So that does make sense. Are you using any AI tools to help with outreach, personalization, anything like that? Or is it the old school, I'm going to go look at what you've published on LinkedIn, I'm going to go look up the company, yada, 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 and write an email manually?
I'm pretty old school. I do a lot of outreach looking through LinkedIn. Something that I've also done, and this is unique to e-commerce, is I actually will go through their website and purchase products, take tons of screenshots of their program, exactly how everything works, and I'll send people site audits. And I'll identify based on your expected volume and based on what I'm seeing, here's how I've seen these metrics are affecting buyers, and here's the money that you're leaving on the table. So I'd like to send very actionable emails to people with dollar signs attached to it. Based on what I've seen, you're losing 1 to 2 million a year. Here's how I'd fix that. When can we chat? And it seems to motivate people pretty well.
I've seen SEO companies do site audits, and it's interesting. I haven't thought about doing a site audit from your perspective, but that makes perfect sense. How long do each one of those audits actually take you?
They probably take 1 to 2 hours each. It's a grueling process. I like to take lots of notes and make sure that I'm really digging into things so that I don't come across as, trigger happy and sending things that don't make sense.
Sure. No, I think that makes sense. I think too many. So I like AI. I like tools like, well, I'm going to be biased. I like Identity Matrix. I like, what is it called? Play. Like there's some good AI tools out there, but they're never going to go that far. They're never going to, and we all know, especially in sales and marketing, we all know that you can automate the living hell out of it. Standing out with something like a site audit is very interesting. It may be old school, but if you're breaking into those enterprise accounts, who the heck cares? The revenue just makes sense. I wouldn't do that so much with a SMB who's only going to bring you in 10 grand a year. I mean, what is the average ticket price of what you're selling?
For the larger brands and the brands that I'm willing to do a site audit for, those are, quarter changing deals. You get one of those a quarter and it makes your quarter type deal. And you're absolutely right. With the smaller things, it's just not possible at scale. I'd say it at least has to be in what I've identified could be a 6-figure deal to be worth my time to do something as hyper-focused as a site audit.
Makes sense. How do you guys, so you used to be at ChargeBee, and I was laughing because my company just implemented Chargeify, which is now Maxio. I know you guys went toe to toe at one point. Now you're at Recharge, going against Order Groove, and you had mentioned Stay before we jumped on here. Now, I'm not in e-com. I work with some e-com companies, but that's not my domain, right? Even I've heard of Order Groove, which means they have to be pretty big because I don't know anything about your space. How does an AE like you stick out from the others? not at a feature level, but in terms of how you sell and how you break through some of the industry noise, how you get your email responded to, etc., that your competitors may not be doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I've noticed is that our competitors are very competent solutions. From a feature perspective, they're pretty good, and there's a lot of parity across the ecosystem. Where I really like to stand out amongst my competition is by sending clear, direct, and actionable feedback to buyers, which is something that I think is lacking across industries, is finding ways to improve programs, being proactive in your approach, and telling people how you can help them and make them money that's not a generic outreach. I know that sounds probably very basic and intuitive, but it's a lot harder than most people think, and there's not a lot of reps who do it. Figuring out, what's a clear opportunity that I can bring to the table that will make this merchant money, and then really diving deep into that and being actionable with your direction and feedback is something that buyers don't see in their outreach. They typically get feature dumped on. I don't like to talk about features and outreach. I like to talk about results and value and time saved and money made, how I can help people do that. That usually at least warrants a first conversation where I can do great discovery. And then I can really dig into problems that I can solve for them and money that I can help them make.
So when it comes to personalizing an email, long emails don't typically work, and maybe you disagree. You can personalize in a very custom way with those site audits. But outside of that, how do you communicate? Here's the value I can bring. I did my research on you. This isn't automated, but keep it super short. How do you do that?
That's a great question. When I worked, my first job as a BDR, I had the great opportunity to work with one of the founders of Qualtrics, and he taught me this framework called a case open. I'm not sure if you've heard it before, but it's a 5-sentence structure that works really well at getting people on the phone. And like 80% of it can be automated. So there is a bit of scale that can happen here. So there's 5 sentences. It's a rapport statement, a position statement, benefit statement, proof statement, and then schedule an SNE. So it would go something like this. I'd reach out to someone with a rapport statement, hey, Stephen, thanks for taking the call. Thanks for looking at my email. Here's what I noticed. Here's why I'm reaching out. Here's the trigger that made me want to talk to you. And then the position, benefit, proof can all be automated. So here's my position as a company. Here's what we do. Here's how we help companies. Here's the benefit of working with us. Here's a competitor that we just helped do XYZ in the space, a brand that they're hopefully familiar with. Can we hop on the phone and talk about it? So at scale, I'm able to at least semi-automate my position, benefit, and proof statements across outreach. And I'm really just working on a tailored rapport statement, explaining why I'm reaching out, what opportunity I saw, and then the rest of it can be fairly generic.
Wait, I heard 4: rapport, position, benefit, proof. What's the one I'm missing?
Schedule next event. SNE is the 5th part, asking for time.
Got it. CTA, but whatever you want to call it. I get it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And I like that you guys break it down tactically. Now, here's a very detailed question. Are all those statements their own paragraph? Do you consolidate them? Like, what does the format look like?
So they can be a max of 12 words each. So it's meant to be able to be viewed on one phone screen without having to scroll at all. So like in the email header that you get on your iPhone, like you tap into that, you should be able to read the whole email. And it should be that crisp and that clear that they can get the value of it and not even have to open it.
Interesting. So you do have to consolidate it, because if you put them all on separate lines, it's just going to drag it out further. That makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. That makes perfect sense. Talk about later in the sales cycle. Why do you think most AEs ultimately lose 80 to 90% of their deals?
I think they lose most of their deals because they don't differentiate themselves from competitor, and they get relegated to who they sound like. If you come in and you just talk about features, we do this, they don't do this, you're just going to get relegated to the person who cares most about that feature. In my industry, I would probably get relegated to a brand manager or a e-commerce person or a head of customer success. And I wouldn't get relegated to a buyer if all that I talked about was features. Where people fall short is they never get in touch with the person who actually makes the decision, and they don't talk to the things that they care about, and they don't solution towards those.
I think on top of that, so I agree with what you said, but on top of differentiating, you yourself need to differentiate yourself from the other reps. Are you talking to them the same way other reps do? Is your tonality the same as other reps have? Are you building a relationship in the same way that other reps are? I find to be a lot of a good source of value is an emotional connection. No, it's not objective value like, hey, my tool can do X, Y, or Z, but you taking the time to genuinely build, let's call it human value, makes more of a difference than almost anything, in my opinion. But would you agree?
Absolutely. I think human connection is something that's overlooked. And then challenging people. I don't think enough people challenge people across the sales cycle. A lot of AEs become order takers. When a competitor or when a brand is looking for a solution, they're obviously going to talk with 4 to 5 different vendors. They're going to tell each vendor, here's my requirements. Each person is going to go and solution towards those, but the real best sellers will pause and make people rethink about what they're trying to accomplish, figure out what metric they're trying to influence, and then if they can, recommend a better solution. And that's how you really separate yourself from the other basic AEs who are just order takers.
Fully agreed there. I love it. Well, Sam, I think this is super insightful for a lot of AEs, and not just hands-on BDRs, AEs, etc., but actual managers that I think are missing a lot of this. I know a lot of the leadership that I talk to, they're so focused on individual metrics and quantitative numbers that they forget about the qualitative piece of sales, or they try to automate way too much with AI. Again, I'm pro AI. My company is literally Identity Matrix AI, but you can't lose the humanity in sales. So I think you're a good testament to that. Sam, really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a great, thanks for letting me talk about what I like to do. And it was a great opportunity to learn from you.
Absolutely.